Welcome back. Today we're going to be tying a Moosequito. It's one of my oldest and most useful flies. Dry fly, anyway. Maybe I should even say traditionally tied dry fly. I don't tie that many traditional anymore. I've really kind of gotten on the parachute bandwagon. But for the first 30 years or more of my fly tying, it was almost all standard like this. So the Moosequito has caught trout, it's caught bass, it's caught panfish. I really don't think there's many fish at all that won't eat one of these. And it's a really easy fly to tie. It's one of the easiest flies to tie, and you get the materials for this. You can tie hundreds of them for pennies. So, except the hook, I guess. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started on it. I think you'll like it. It's such a great fly. Now, we're going to be tying this on a size 14 today. And I don't normally tie this on a size 14. I normally tie these on a 16 or an 18. I've even tied it as small as a 22. But 14 is a little bit easier for you to see, and it'll work. I mean, it's a fishable fly. It will definitely catch fish. And I'm just using the thinnest thread I have, just because it's a dry fly. You won't see much of this thread. Now, some of the materials that I'm tying this fly with come from feather dusters. And I've had these feather dusters for decades. And I'm still tying flies out of them. I mean, you pull one feather off of it and you can tie, 4 or 5 dry flies, at least tail material. And that's what we're going to start with, the tail. So, if I had some fancy coq de leon or something like that, then I could use that. But I've been tying flies with fibers off of this feather duster for 40 years. And it still works just fine. So just make sure and get the tail as high on the hook as you can. Go down to about the bend or the barb location. If you had a barb, this particular hook is barbless, which I highly recommend if you can, that you fish barbless. Just trying to get everything down where I can tie on the wing. Now for the wing, you can just use tips from these feathers. I mean, I'm not trying to tie a Instagram fly here, just tying a fly. Now you want those hackle tips to go out from each other. And I'm going to pull a good bit of this hackle down so that it doesn't get tied in as part of the wing. So to tie in these wings, I usually get 3 wraps around, loose wraps, and then I look at it and try to make sure that the wing's about where I want. This is just maybe a little bit too long. Alright, so then I'll tighten it up and then lift everything up and build a little dam. So get those hackle tips to point as straight up as I can. And then I'll just clip this off at a little bit of an angle just to help make a little bit of a taper on the body. Got a couple of rogue fibers in here. Now it will be nice to have a little bit of a taper on this body since we're going to be covering it with moose mane. Get these up just a bit higher. And for moose mane, you just want to grab 2 different colors. And try to find one that goes dark all the way down to the bottom. Most of them don't. But if you can find one that goes dark all the way to the bottom, it's a little bit harder to do that than to find the white ones. Alright, so now I've got 2 moose mane fibers. One's clearly darker than the other. I'm going to line those tips up, and then I'm going to trim off the first inch, just so I get to a little bit sturdier part of the fiber. And just capture that in and bring it down all the way to the tail, and then I'm gonna flatten my thread a little bit and bring it back up to just about where I want to start that hackle. Now I want just a hair, just the tiniest little drop. I need to clean off my thing here. All right. And then you're going to want to just start this with the manual wrap just to get it going, and then you can use your rotary feature. And be careful even using the rotary feature, because it's easy to put a little bit too much tension on these and pop them loose. Okay, that's a reasonably smooth looking body. I can live with it. Alright, now I'm going to go up in the front here and just do a little bit of foundation just so my hackle doesn't, fall off a ledge. It's not necessary to do that. It may not even be advisable to do that. But I find it makes my hackle a little bit smoother. Now, I'm going to get rid of some of this extra hackle fibers here. And some on the back as well. Just to clean it up a little bit. Then I'm going to do a figure 8. I just want those wings to set just a little bit better. Alright, now the hackle I'm going to use is grizzly. And I'm just going to find a size 14 in here. This ought to work. And back in the day when I started tying flies 40 years ago, I would have just dreamed about hackle like this. I would typically end up having to use 2 hackle feathers to get hackle to be thick enough. These days you don't really have to do that with all this genetic hackle that's been bred specifically for tying flies. It's kind of a different world. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to kind of build that up just a little bit so it doesn't have that drop off. I want to try to keep a little room. And 3 behind. Three in front. And just clean that up just a hair. And then we'll whip finish. And call this puppy done. Just a tiny bit of head cement. I think we can call that done. Got just a little bit of long hackle here at the front. I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but fish just fine. Those wings. Like I said, this is just a great fly. It's one of the best flies that I've ever used, and I'm sure it will be for you too. And also, like I said, I tend to tie this now in a parachute version instead of the classic version. I hackle it pretty heavily so it'll float, and you know, the trout just tear this thing up, and you know, so do other species, but trout in particular just seem to love this fly. I hope you like it. If you do, please consider subscribing. Hit a like my way. Tell your friends about me. Thanks. Hope you liked it.